Hi and welcome to a video about Yuriko Tiger Shadow's performance. And as you can see from 320 tournament entries, it has an average win rate of 16.86, which is rather bad. That's the win rate Yuriko have been able to achieve post Dockside and Jeweled Lotus Manuscript banned from various tournaments. But now some of you are going to say, but Mons, Yuriko is great, I'm winning a lot with it in my local game store, like a 50% potential win rate or so. So I also calculate win rate from YouTube gameplay, so to say, and from that it's achieved a 22.22 average win rate, which is suddenly good. So what's the takeaway from that? Well, basically, Yuriko is struggling in tournaments, but it's working fine in your local game stores, you could say. But the verdict still has to be like, this is not recommended. If we actually compare this to, let's say, Tymna and Kram on 26.84, it's a 10% difference. So if you're going into a tournament with, if you're thinking about Tymna, Kram or Yuriko for your tournament choice, you have a 10% chance of winning more with these guys compared to Yuriko. Kinnan is performing something around 7% better than Yuriko, that's a big difference. Tymna and Thrasius is also doing like 7% better than Yuriko. Tivit is closer, it's at 21%, but, or, well, you could say 21, 22, something of the sort. But it's still much better than Yuriko, still. Of course, there are commanders that are doing worse, like Vinota, Joiner of Forces, is performing weaker than Yuriko. And this is definitely like in the area of it is not recommended for cEDH tournament. But that more or less has to be the verdict for Yuriko too now, that it's not going to be recommended for cEDH tournaments. But why is that? Well, we can actually take a look at this chart that I have right here. This is from YouTube gameplay videos where I've calculated how much Yuriko is drawing cards when it appears. And you can see here that it has an average 5.91 draw rate from all of these calculations. When it's winning, it's drawing around 10 cards in an entire game. That's how many Yuriko triggers you've put onto the stack. And when it's losing, it's drawing around 3.5. If we compare that to a Mystic Remora, which has a similar value actually, if you take a look at how many total draws it has, 5.99 to 5.91 on Yuriko's end. On the other hand, you have cards like Rhetorik Study that is drawing a lot more, and then you have cards like Esper Sentinel that is drawing a tiny bit less. But you can see a big important part here on the average value of winners 10, that's 10 cards they've drawn on average the entire game, and that have led into a victory. For Yuriko to efficiently win, you could say, you have to put a lot of Yuriko triggers on the stack. And inside tournaments you don't get to do that, because the average turn count is quite small, because the game goes to draws, the game ends in a time schedule. I think the average turn count in tournaments is like 4 or 5. If it goes to turn 6, that is a very long game. And if you're getting Yuriko into play turn 2, which is the average, that's what you're mulliganing for, you're getting your first trigger on turn 2. If it goes to turn 6, that's a total of 4 triggers. Now of course, if you have ninjutsu creatures that's gonna help you achieve more, that will increase the amount of Yuriko triggers. But still you can see the problem here, compared to like local game store or YouTube gameplay content where Yuriko has more turns to swing around with. But of course we should take a look at individual card choices as well, because there are a few interesting ones. Some Yuriko players, this is from tournaments by the way, have tested Arcane Laboratory or stacks cards in general. And as you can see, it hasn't really panned out into a good result, like Cursed Totem not helping your win rate. So you have a 50-50 split of half the people entering into tournaments with Cursed Totem inside their decklist and half that don't. And the ones that don't win a little bit more. Or you could say that the people that have included Cursed Totem win a little bit less. Same thing with Daffy Voidwalker, this is definitely a 50-50 split and it's dropping the win rate by minus 2.64, which is bad. Don't play this, in other words. Opposition Agent is seeing a little bit more action, but it's still not helping out the win rate that much. Some stacks cards seems to be doing fine. I mean, there's a meta structure you could definitely talk about, like people are drawing cards, so Shouldered is going to have an effect. Weathered Runestone is also very good versus Underworld Breach, and Underworld Breach is very popular, so it's a meta choice. It's showcasing what's good to interact with compared to what's not so good to interact with, basically. I did mention in the video that you want to put as many Yuriko triggers on the stack. That's basically what's helping you achieve victory. However, there are the concept of including things like arcane adaptation, which is proven to be undesired. You can see the popularity vote of 1.9%, so it's not something Yuriko players want to have in their builds, and when they do, it drags the win rate down. You have the same thing with Conspiracy, even less popular, and then Maskwood Nexus, that is also very unpopular and also dragging down the win rate too. Instead, what you want to have are ninjas, basically. More ninjas, that's better, because they're doing something when you don't have Yuriko in play. And we have been gaining a lot of new ninjas, where you can basically play Ninja Tribal instead of playing these conspiracy things. Because the chance of drawing into one of your many different Ninja Tribals is better than drawing into Arcane Adaptation. And most very low ninjutsu cost ninjas are showcasing a pretty good result in general. So the focus is to actually play real Ninja Tribal and not to create your own fake Ninja Tribal to get as many Yuriko triggers as possible. And then of course you're still playing all of these. Oh well, in the end, this is a ninja, but you're using it to get the Yuriko into play turn 2. This ninja have proven to be very good Silver Fur Master with an increase of plus 1.66 to the average win rate. Well, you're reducing the activated ability of your ninjas, and you are increasing them by +1/+1. So that's good. It's helping you with the beatdown. That takes us to the very expensive stuff. I mean, what about Draco? What if you flip into Draco? That's a 16 damage on all of your opponents. That's a big burn effect. Now, here's the thing. It's not good because it doesn't actually do anything. It's only good if you accidentally flip into it. And if you have it in your hand, you have to have a brainstorm to get rid of it. And there's a lot of those really expensive cards that are proven to be bad or undesirable, and as you can see, the popularity vote really low. Some of the stuff might be worthy of a consideration because Rise of the Eldrazi is actually a expensive card, but it's a good card if it resolves. So it's an extra turn effect. You destroy a permanent and you draw 4 cards, and it can't be counterspelled. Now it can be Mindbreak trapped, but it's probably not going to be Mindbreak trapped. In the end, I think this is something you could experiment with a little bit more. It's seen a very low testing of only 6 tournament entries, so to say. But the fact that it actually does something compared to like Draco is a huge upgrade. This one also showcased some promising result, Shadow of Mortality, and the reason is that it's actually quite easy to cast. So it's going to flip into a 15 burn damage with Yuriko, but if you've lost a lot of life, which is usually happening, fetch lands, Ancient Tomb, you might be attacked by your opponents, eventually you might just be able to cast it for 2 black mana, or maybe 4 mana of something of the sort. It's still a 7/7, so it's gonna help you punch people's face if you get to that kind of long game, you could say. But I don't think this is an auto include, even though a lot of people have been play testing with it, and it's showcased some kind of good promising result. That takes us to other alternative win cons. Peer into the Abyss is definitely an option. Now Ad Nos is not an option. The reason Peer into the Abyss is because you don't have the problem of having those really expensive spells in your deck that Ad Nos can't deal with. So if you have still a lot of really fast, high amount of mana, lots of rituals, Peer into the Abyss could work. It's also a very expensive spell you could flip into. It does something compared to that Eldrazi and that Draco, and it could be viewed as an alternative win con. And once again, we are on a very low turn count in tournaments, so having an alternative win con compared to Yuriko Beats could be a good thing. I can see that yes, it is not popular among the people that have playtested it, but it's definitely worth something to consider potentially. That takes us to the next step of, should we try to manipulate Yuriko's top deck so we can have better flips? The first thing out is definitely Sensei's Divining Top, but I hate this card, and I'm so happy to prove that it's bad even in Yuriko. The sample size is pretty big. You have 75 decks that have playtested this. The chi-square test is the p-test is statistically significant, so we can trust the win rate here a little bit more compared to some of the other cards I've showcased. But as you can see, it's not working great, and the answer is pretty simple. Imagine you're hitting and you're getting 3 Yuriko triggers. That means that Sensei's Divining Top doesn't do that much. Now yes, you can respond to each individual trigger to increase the burn damage potentially, but you're still paying an enormous amount of mana for just dealing damage to your opponents. It's better if this is a counter spell or another ninja, so to say. The same thing can be said about Scroll Rack. It's also showcasing a drop in the win rate. It's not helping you, it's hurting you, you're spending mana for nothing. The card doesn't do anything but help you burn more damage. So in the end, it's a win more card. It feels great when you're getting to those stage where I'm gonna swing, I'm gonna generate 4 triggers, I'm gonna activate Scroll Rack, and you're gonna take like 30 damage each. But if this were another ninja, it will help you get to that stage where you're winning anyway. There are some other cards that are similar to this, like that can also help you top deck manipulate, but they also showcase a bad win rate result. Fast as Oracle, auto include, you want to have that inside your build because once again you need to win the game somehow, and Fast as Oracle with Tainted or Consult, good. We have some other worthy mentions. Polywog Prodigy has, as you can see, a very low popularity vote. People don't want to play this. It's only seen 8 entries and so far it haven't performed good. Focusing on your Yuriko game plan is much better in general. Replace this with any ninja to your ninja tribal concept instead. Talion the Kindly Lord is showcasing a bad result of a -1% to the win rate, and I can see why. It's quite expensive. Yuriko is usually drawing a lot of cards, which means that you're sitting with a big hand size. This is helping you get more cards, sure, but it's also expensive. You want to have low to the ground cards like Memnite that is free to cast, so you can empty your hand more efficiently, or Signal Pest, 1 mana instead. This is great to get your Yuriko into play early in the game too, but it's also good later in the game when you have a big ninja army that can attack and help you with that overrun effect. But cards like Talion the Kindly Lord just makes you tap out, basically. And you don't play that many mana rocks in Yuriko, so you're usually going to put like land, 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 and on turn 4 you can tap out to cast this thing. Now sure, you might get your Sol Ring, but that is not a certainty. Like Mana Crypt is gone, that's gonna make it harder for you to get your Talion into play. Sure, you have Lotus Petal, you have Mox Diamond, but you don't always play like Fellwar Stone, Mind Stone, Arcane's. You can play Arcane Signet. But I think you see the picture I'm painting for you. It's gonna take some time before you're able to actually cast this thing compared to another deck that is like filled with rituals and more fast mana and mana dorks. And most of the expensive cards that you flip into that are doing good are free to cast, like Snuff Out. You pay for life instead of paying mana for it, and you destroy a creature. Great. This one I was a little bit surprised about. Now it's showcasing a very low popularity vote, so apparently the veteran experience from Yuriko players is also saying that this is bad. And the people that have played it have also proven it to be bad. It's dropping the win rate by basically 3%, and that's a big drop. Now I don't know why. If I would build Yuriko today, I would probably play Treasure Cruise as well, because in my experience it's usually just 1 blue mana. But on the other hand, maybe in tournaments you aren't able to fill your graveyard that fast, and that could make Treasure Cruise a little bit trickier to actually pay just 1 blue pip for instead. So I guess it's bad and not recommended. Data supports that at the very least, but I don't fully understand why. Misdirection, auto-include. Mindbreak Trap, basically an auto-include. Street Wraith, doing great. I mean, you're paying 2 life to just draw a new card, and it flips into 5, so it's good. Like an Gitaxian Probe. Fierce Guardianship, auto-include. Doomsday, another great alternative win con for Yuriko. As you can see, it's increasing the win rate quite a bit, and it actually has a pretty big popularity vote by 1/3. And Yuriko is a pretty good commander to crack that doomsday pile. Now, this could actually win the game without a fastest oracle if you have a lot of Yuriko triggers on the stack, or if you're going to gain a lot of Yuriko triggers with your attack. So you could put some really expensive cards on top of your library and just attack, flip, 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 and boom, everyone die. But with Doomsday, you can assemble that one card combo fastest oracle from a Doomsday, so to say, with Yuriko cracking the Doomsday pile. And once again, I think it's very important that we include more ways to win the game if you're going into tournaments, because the typical Yuriko burn, where you're attacking and trying to slow kill your opponents, is taking a lot of time. So I would like to highly potentially recommend the Doomsday, or, and maybe both, depends on, that Peer into the Abyss. Commandeer, yeah, looks really good, highly recommended. It's a great card. I mean, you're sitting with a huge hand size when you're playing Yuriko, and you're definitely going to have 2 blue cards at the ready when you have this in your hand. And it flips into 7, so it's a big burn effect on your opponents. And it feels great when you're stealing someone's Rhetoric study. So I hope this helps out. Still though, I don't think that Yuriko is going to be a great performing commander in general. I think it's going to struggle in tournaments still, because the entire concept of Yuriko is that I'm going to be playing this mid-range control game, and that's also not recommended inside tournaments in general. You want to have a turbo efficient game plan with some control cards around it, and usually some card draw engines as well. That's gonna help you get there. But the entire concept of Yuriko is to play a mid-range control deck where you're drawing cards, burning your opponent slowly, and then eventually winning later. Still though, I think Yuriko is going to function pretty good inside more tabletop games on your local game store, because politics exist a little bit more in those scenarios compared to grindy tournament games. In the end, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.